Welcome to episode 25 in this chess puzzle adventure series starring Bobby Fischerman, Average Joe, and Peter Potzer. Previously, Average Joe had challenged Officer Pawn Pusher to a game to try to escape Potzer prison. Unfortunately, he was easily defeated and they went back to their cell feeling discouraged. However, the prison chef had followed them back to their cell, and that's where we pick up our story today. The chef waited until the prison guard left, and then he walked up to their door and said, "Psst, I know a way to get you out of the prison." Peter and Joe looked at each other, but they felt like they didn't really have a lot of options, so they said, "Okay, what do you have in mind?" The chef said, "I have these magic berries, and when you eat them, your chess rating will immediately increase 5 times what it currently is." Peter and Joe said, "That sounds great. What's the catch?" The chef said, "There's no catch, but if you escape the prison, I'd like you to go to the dragon's lair and retrieve an item for me. It's called the Dragon's Tear Gemstone. It should be somewhere in the dragon's lair. And if you bring that back to me, I will give you these berries now." Peter and Joe felt like that was a little bit risky traveling to the dragon's lair, but they didn't feel like they had a choice, and so they accepted his offer. He passed the berries in. Peter Potzer grabbed them and immediately ate some. They both looked at him and said, "Do you feel any different?" He said, "No." The chef said, "Let's test it and see if it worked. Here is a puzzle." And with that, he presented the following position to Peter Potzer. This is the position he presented to Peter Potzer. It's actually black to play. Black's pawn is moving down this way, and that's actually how this puzzle starts. Black gets the queen, putting white in check. And obviously, white has 3 legal moves: king b2, king c2, and king d2. But only one of them is the correct move for white to win this position. If you would like to pause, which move should white play and why? If you had a chance to look at that, the correct move is king to b2. This is the only winning move. And at first glance, you might think that it doesn't really matter. Like, the black queen is going to keep putting us in check. It doesn't really matter where we go, right? Well, it does matter. And I think to understand it, we should start with these two and see why they don't work. And then we'll come back to see why king b2 does work. Okay, so obviously white has the threat here of getting a bunch of queens. I mean, you already have a queen. You have 3 pawns that are about to become more queens. There's only one problem for white, right? The problem is, can you get away from the checks? That's the problem, because if you can't, it doesn't matter what you have over here. You're just going to get a perpetual check, right? But if you can escape the checks from the queen, well, then you might have time to get another queen. So that's kind of the first goal for white here. All right, so let's take a look at king to d2 and see what the problem with this move is. Black's going to simply play check. You're going to have to try to move up eventually. You can't stay back here. Obviously, you have to kind of try to run over here and maybe hide. But watch what black can do. Check, check. And when the queen ever gets back here to put the king in check, white has no winning chances. And here's why. Check, check, check. And when you go here, if the black queen can ever go to b5, this is an important square in this position, and puts you in check, there's always going to be a perpetual check for black, because when you try to tuck over to c8 to hide, there's this move queen to a6 check. And you can't get away from that, right? Black can just keep going check, 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 check all day long. Okay, so the important thing is, can the queen land here to put you in check and then hop over to a6? All right, so let's go actually all the way back and talk now about king to c2. And what you're going to notice here is that something very similar happens. Check, and you can try to run. Check, check. And even if you run up the board, check, check, check. Notice the same position. The queen goes to b5. And then when you go there, there's always this move queen to a6. And again, the black queen just constantly puts you in check. You never have time to use any of your other pieces. Okay, so now that you see the problem, let's go back to the beginning again. You might be able to better understand why king to b2 is the only winning move. So what's black going to do? Well, you have to go one of these 2 checks, right? They're the only 2 checks that really make sense. This one, you lose your queen, and this one, all of these, you also lose your queen. You have 2 options. So watch what happens now. Check, and now you go king to b3. And notice how there's no moves with the queen back this direction that put the king into check, right? So keep that in mind. Check. And again, king to a4. Notice how we're avoiding going to b4 here because of this check, right? Where it allows the queen to kind of get behind and reposition itself over here where it needs to go. Okay, we're going to a4. There's no checks like along this diagonal, right? Black has to keep going like this. Check. We come up. This is also an important move here because if we go to b5, look what happens. The queen comes over to c4 and we get the same kind of position. Check. You can try to run check. And whenever we go here, there's always going to be this and a perpetual check, right? Black gets to that b5 square. Okay. But when we go to a5, look carefully at where the checks are for black. There's only one. Queen to d2. But look how far away black's queen is. So do you see how important that was? Okay, so watch what happens. King to a6, also an important move. And again, it's the same idea. If we go here, we allow the queen to come in and get to that important square, okay? So watch this. King to a6. The queen can't go there because if it ever doesn't put us in check, we're going to get another queen, right? So it has to go to a2 check. And look how far we've kept the queen, right? Now king to b7. Queen check. And look at the difference. When we play the move king to c8, there is no queen to a6 check, which means we buy ourselves some time, right? We buy ourselves one move. However, black is not out of tricks yet, and they play the move king to c6 with a very important threat. Before I say anything else, if you would like to pause, what move should white play next? Well, if you had a chance to look at that, hopefully you didn't say promote this to a queen, because then you get checkmated. All right, so that was black's threat. They're just going to checkmate our king. So you can't get a queen. You actually have to move your queen somewhere. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 options, but only one of them is the winning move. And the winning move is queen to g8. Of all those 4 squares, you go to the place where the queen can simply capture you. Pretty mind-boggling. Now, what's the idea? Well, the first point is that black can't actually take your queen, or they lose, because you simply get another queen, and you block off all the checks, and next turn you're going to get another queen. It doesn't matter where black moves, you're going to get another queen, and white can easily win. Okay, you're not actually losing your queen by going there, but there's another reason why that is so important. So let's actually go back and choose a different move and see what's going to happen. If you go here, you'll also get checkmated. The queen comes down and captures, checkmate. Game over. Okay, so you don't want to go there. So it kind of looks like a toss-up between these 3 squares. This one seems to be the wrong choice, and maybe one of these seems to be the correct choice, right? But we already talked about this is the right one. Queen to f8. Watch what's going to happen. Queen's going to come down, check. Queen's going to capture, check. Queen's going to capture, check. You're going to go here, and now black plays queen to f5, and essentially what's happening is you can't get away from the checks. You just can't do it. If you go back this way, you're always going to be put in check again. You have to try to run over here. It doesn't matter where you go. There's always going to be a check for black. Check here. You could try blocking, but then there's check. You could try going over here, but then there's check. There's check. Sorry, this one is different. It is a fork, but your king is too far away. Okay, so this is important also. The king now catches your pawn. So that's kind of the other situation. So either there's going to be a perpetual check, or your king is too far away, okay? So keep that in mind. That's what happens if you move your queen, going all the way back here, if you move your queen to f8. Similarly, if you go to h8, same kind of thing. Check, black's going to capture, black's going to capture, and then just go for these perpetual checks. Queen here, and you can never really get out of the checks, and black just keeps doing this. Okay, great. So let's go back and see what is the difference now with, queen to g8. All right, so again, black's going to do the same thing. Check, captures, captures. You move here. Try to put you in check and watch what happens. Queen to f7, and this is a different situation. Notice how black doesn't have any good checks. The only good check would be here, but then you just get a queen, and you win. Pretty easy. So black has one more thing to try, queen to c5, trying to pin your pawn. But now you can come over here, check, and watch the difference. Do you remember last time when the queen blocked on h6 to create the fork? black just took it and then went and captured your pawn. Now, black has to take it because they're in check and you're going to take their queen otherwise. They have to take it. But now look at your king. It's just in time to be a winning king and pawn endgame. You cover the queening square, black has no way to stop you, and you win the game. So you can see that subtle move of not going all the way over to h8, not going to f8, but going right in the middle, queen to g8, was the only winning move. Hope you guys can appreciate that one, and congratulations if you spotted this very difficult move. Now at this point, Peter Potzer looked at the chef and said, that was a really easy puzzle. I saw all of that without any trouble. I think I'm ready to play Officer Pawn Pusher. The chef smiled and quietly walked away, and Peter Potzer called the guard over and said he would like a meeting with Officer Pawn Pusher. That's where we'll pick up our story next time. Thank you guys for watching, and as always, stay sharp, play smart, and take care.